Longline fishing began in 1917 when Japanese immigrants began using flag line fishing in Hawaii. This technique involved using a main line with tarred rope placed horizontally in the water with numerous leaders and hooks. The line had multiple floats with flags attached to notify the fishermen of a catch. Since the 80s, longline fishing has been the most popular method to catch premium quality big eye tuna, cod and other fish. While well known by fishermen and fisheries, how did longline fishing begin and what are the benefits of using it for fishing in Hawaii? The boats used were wooden and built by Japanese boat makers in Hawaii. The typical bait used for flag line fishing was opalu, or mackerel shad. After World War II, steel hull vessels were used in place of the wooden boats, monofilament line replaced the ropes and hydraulic-powered reels were used for longline fishing. Baited hooks are attached to the nets at intervals to attract the target species. Long lines can be set for pelagic, midwater, or demersal, bottom, fishing, depending on the target species. Without careful management, longline fisheries can have unintended interactions with non-target fish, seabirds, and other marine life. MSC-certified longline operations, such as those fishing for Patagonian toothfish in the Southern Ocean, have employed measures such as weighted long lines that sink more quickly, and tow-ride lines that scare away seabirds. Some have even made changes to fishing times to avoid interaction with endangered, threatened and protected, ETP, species. Long lines can be used to capture fish in surface waters, pelagic, as well as bottom-living species, demersal. Longlining sets a length of line and from this come branch lines carrying baited hooks. Large long lines used offshore can be tens of kilometers long and carry thousands of hooks. Smaller inshore vessels use shorter, lighter lines with roughly less than 1,000 hooks. Habitat damage. Longlines do not drag along the seabed, so are not associated with damage to marine habitat. Bycatch of vulnerable species. Longlines can unintentionally catch vulnerable species, and high seas fisheries have been particularly associated with catching endangered seabirds, sharks and sea turtles. Longlines can be associated with capture of non-target fish and other marine life. Seabird bycatch on longline hooks can be reduced by the use of weighted lines, colored bird scaring streamers and fishing at night. Hook shape adaptations have helped to reduce shark and sea turtle bycatch in some fisheries. Scientific studies have proven that fish caught on a longline have a significant improvement on color, texture, smell and creates firmer fillets. The higher quality fish is due to less compression damage and less blood loss due to quicker harvest times. Longline fishing also is less disruptive for the natural habitat of fish versus trawling, which can significantly damage seabeds.
We always strive for the freshest seafood and believe that fish that are caught by longline are less stressed and taste better. Another benefit of longline is that the process is more energy efficient and creates less seabed disruption. In addition to all of these benefits, longline fishing also helps reduce unwanted catches too. Longline fishing produces better tasting fish, is better for the environment and helps keep fish habitats intact. The next time you have the choice, purchase fish caught using longline fishing. Most popular types of fishing line. There are several types of fishing line, but the two most commonly used are monofilament and braid. Monofilament is made from nylon and is one long continuous filament, whereas braided fishing line is made up of several super strong, very thin fibers made from materials similar to Kevlar braided together to form a line that is basically round in cross-section. 1. Monofilament line. Advantages. Monofilament is the most popular type of fishing line and comes in a great variety of strengths and colors. Mono is less expensive than other lines, stretches to absorb shocks, is abrasion resistant, and uniformly round in cross-section, which helps keep it neat on the spool. Monofilament is easy to tie knots in, but can suffer from memory, where it loops in the shape of the spool. Mono comes in several shades, but clear and blue are popular because they disappear underwater and are very difficult for a fish to see. Of the various suitable types of fishing line for saltwater, monofilament is one of the most popular. Disadvantages: monofilament is not as strong as braid for a given diameter, so higher pound test mono takes up more space on a spool. It's also nylon, which means it breaks down over time when exposed to sunlight, so it's important to respool with fresh line every year. 2. Braid fishing line. Advantages: braid is very strong for a given diameter, often twice as strong as mono, so you can pack more line on a spool at a given pound test. That also means it sinks faster, casts farther, and trolls deeper than mono. Braid has no memory, so loops and twists aren't a problem, making braid one of the best fishing line for spinning reels. Braid doesn't break down in sunlight, so you can keep it on the spool year after year. And it doesn't stretch at all, so you can feel every bump of the bottom and nudge from a fish. Disadvantages: braid is very slippery, so you have to use knots that can hold despite the low friction. Braid is so strong it's difficult to cut. You have to carry nail clippers or very sharp scissors. And though it comes in several colors, it's not see-through like mono. Most anglers have a leader in their fishing gear and tackle and use it when fishing with braid to help hide the line from the fish. It's also less abrasion resistant than mono. And finally, braid has no stretch, which means there's no give when a fish strikes, so using less drag is a good idea, and a bit more finesse when setting the hook helps as well. 3. Fluorocarbon fishing line. These are other types of fishing line you can use when freshwater fishing, saltwater fishing, or fly fishing. Fluorocarbon is often used as leader material. It's completely invisible underwater and very abrasion resistant, making it the perfect complement to braid. There are now a few brands of fluorocarbon being sold as a main line. 4. Wire fishing line. Wire is another leader material that is used when fishing for toothy fish like mackerel and tuna. Wire comes in single strand and braided varieties. Wire also is popular for some types of trolling where reaching deep depths is important. This requires special hardened spools for the reels. 5. Fly fishing line. Fly line comes in particular weights. These don't reference the breaking strength, but instead the heaviness of the line, which needs to match up with the fly rod. Fly line attaches to a leader called a tippet, which comes in different breaking strengths. Fishing with leaders. One of the best fishing line setups is using a leader, a short length of fishing line that attaches to the main line at one end, and the hook or lure at the other. Leaders can be made of a different material than the main line, or simply be a thicker, heavier version of the main line if, for example, increased abrasion resistance is required. Leaders allow you to improve your success hooking and keeping fish, without having to cast and retrieve an entire line made of the bigger, heavier material. This is especially important when using a wire leader. The most important characteristic of all fishing line types is not the various fishing line sizes. It's the line's breaking strength, the amount of force the line can hold before it parts. This is expressed as pound test. So 10-pound test fishing line should hold 10 pounds before it breaks, and 30-pound test holds 30, and so on. Many things can weaken a line, including the knots you tie in it. It's important to choose a line that is strong enough for your needs within a working margin. You should assume that even brand new line will provide less than 80% of its rated strength once you've tied a hook or lure to it. Early fishing lines were braided natural materials like silk and therefore quite expensive. Modern lines are made from synthetic materials like nylon, Dacron, Dyneema. Catching fish on hook and line can be traced back to early days when hooks were fashioned out of bone and used line from any twisted strands. The use of multiple hooks on one line, long line, probably did not start to come into its own until the late 1800s when the construction of hooks became more mechanized. The next major step would have been in 1950 to 1970 when automated line systems were introduced to bait and shoot, haul and stow the lines. Long lining can be used to target both pelagic and demersal fish, with the lines being rigged and set at a position in the water column to suit the particular species. A basic long line consists of a long length of line, light rope, or more common now is heavy nylon monofilament, with multiple branch lines with hooks on, snoods, be attached at regular intervals. On smaller inshore vessels, baiting and handling the gear by hand, they may use lines that are only a few hundred meters long with a few hundred hooks attached. The larger ocean-going long-line vessel with modern automatic baiting and hauling systems will shoot lines that are several miles long with many thousands of hooks on. As in most fishing methods, the amount of gear used is dictated by the size of the vessel. As with most static gear, the end of the line is shot away with an anchor to fix it to the seabed and a buoy to mark where it is and aid retrieval. The anchor and buoy are shot away first, then as the boat steams forward, the line and baited hooks is paid out over the stern. The speed at which the vessel shoots its gear depends greatly on the setup they have on board. The smaller inshore boats pre-baiting the hooks and shooting out of plastic tubs on the deck will have to shoot fairly slowly. The large autoliners, where the hooks are automatically baited as the line is shot from racks on deck, will be able to shoot at speeds in excess of 6 knots, or about 5 hooks per second. The line is then allowed to fish for a certain length of time, often over one change of tide or a full 24-hour period. It is hauled using a line hauler and the fish are unhooked and passed over for processing. On the large auto-line vessels, the line and hooks will lead straight onto the hook storage cassettes and in preparation for baiting and shooting away again. On the smaller vessels, it will be fed into a tub and probably taken ashore to be baited by hand. There are two main types of long line fishing: demersal long line, where the lines are set on the seabed, or very close to it, and pelagic or midwater long lines, where the lines are set at a specific position in the water column to suit the depth of water where the fishermen think the target species will be feeding at. Demersal long line is used to target the bottom feeding fish, in particular cod, haddock, ling and some flatfish. It can be very size selective by variation in hook size, and the species can be regulated by the skipper's experience in where he shoots his gear, what depth of water and what bait is used. It is accepted as a very environmentally friendly method of fishing, with very little bycatch and discards. Nowadays in the UK, long line fishing is operated on a small scale by on a few inshore vessels in different parts of the country, usually on a seasonal basis. Most of the larger demersal long line vessels that supply fish into UK are based in Norway, Iceland, etc. However, demersal long line in some form is used by fishermen throughout the world.